Hello, good evening. My name is Rokle Kiran Ashok from Ahmednagar. Today's date is 3 September 2021. Our today's Viva topic is what is check exception and uncheck exception. So we have discussed about the check exception and uncheck exception. Before we are going to the what is exception. So what is meant by exception? Exception is unwanted abnormal situation are created to disturb the normal program and created the exception. It is known as exception. So exception is occur at your program. It's we have created the unwanted and abnormal situation are created due to we have created the exception in your program. So there are various types of exception are using in Java language. So we have discussed about the what is exception handling. So exception handling is another source to another way of to handle the exception in your program by using easily handle the exception in the exception handling by using the your program. So it is known as exception handling. So we have take the example about the exception handling. We have take the example. Suppose we have create the class name is a test, and we have create the also main method, and in main method that we have including the your data like int a is equal to 10, int a is equal to 10, and int v is equal to 0, and int c is equal to a divided by b. So its output is provided to output sysout output is provided to sysout c. So in that case we have provided to output is a divided by 0. It is a arithmetic exception are found in your program. And then second example of, suppose we are going to the picnic in your as with your friends, and your friend is one friend is not feeling well. In that case exception is created to feeling not well, exception occurs in that case. So it is a exception handling. So there are various types of ways to handle the exception, and various types of keywords in using the exception handling. So first of all, try catch, and then we are using the throw and throws keywords, finally keywords. So it is a exception keywords are using in Java. So we have discussed about the one by one. So what is the firstly we have discussed about the what is the difference between exception and errors. So we have discussed about the difference between that two. So first of all we have discussed about one by one. The first point of exception handling. So exception handling occurs at a compile time exception. It is also known as compile time exception, and the errors are creating in the your system occurs in that case where your RAM memory is slow space, and your processor is also slow. Your programming your program suppose as like a very long projects. So in that case your memory RAM memory is also high level, but your memory space is low. So in that time errors occurs. So in that errors we cannot handle the programmer in error handle. It is a uncheck exception. So second point of exception exception handling is a comparable to exception handling is a handling easily by using your programmer. It's handled by using exception handling, and but errors are not handled by using the programmer because of errors are not handled though programmer. It is the systems occurs errors. So it is a errors. And then third point is there are two types of exception handling by using in Java. First of all, check exception, and second of all, uncheck exception. Check exception is also known as compile time exception, and uncheck exception is also known as uncheck exception. So and the errors are only one types of errors are using in Java. Firstly we are using the uncheck exception uncheck errors. So it is a runtime errors. So it is also known as runtime error. It is all over difference between the exception and errors. So we have discussed about the what is the check exception and what is the uncheck exception. So check exception is also known as compile time exception, and uncheck exception is also known as runtime exception. So compile time exception, it is a check exception is a produced and it is a create to as a compile time, and it is handled by using the compiler. Check exception occurs in that system your programs at firstly compile time. So we have take the example about the compile time exception. Suppose we are working in specific company, so we are working in specific company, so we have start your morning. Firstly we have start your morning, you are ready to your office time, your office, going to the office. So we have forgot your id password id in your company, you forget your lunch, you have forget your lunch. But in that case your mother we have informed to your id is your id is taken to or not, your lunch is taken to or not. It is a exception. Exception is before exception. We are creating the exception before before we have information about the exception. It is a check exception. In that case your mother we are asking to your lunch and then your id card. So in that case we are going to the your company and your entry gate, you are not allowed the your company. So in that case your exception are found in your your company and company gate, because of it is a not checked by compiler before we are going to the company. So it is a check exception. And then second we have second example of check exception. Suppose we are working in specific projects, and in that projects are various types of files are including in that. So we have asking the your file data, but in that time your file is not available in your system. So in that case exception occurs, is a file not found in your system. So it is a check exception. And then second exception is uncheck exception. So uncheck exception, it means we are using the uncheck exception, we are also known as runtime exception. So it is a various types of example. We have taken the uncheck exception. Suppose we are creating the array and your array size is 5, but your required to array size element is a 7. So in that scenario your exception occurs is array index out of bound exception. And then you have also same as the string index out of bound exception, the null pointer exception and out of bound exception. So it is a uncheck exception example. And so uncheck exception are also including errors. It's a insertion it is a insertion errors, as like out of memory errors, then stack overflow errors. So it is a errors are including in uncheck exception. So it is all over about the exception and exception and errors and your check exception and uncheck exception. Thank you so much.